What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Beck Check podcast. On today's episode, I interview my friend and colleague Logan Johnson. Logan just finished his first year teaching at Mountain View High School. He and I worked together on the same collaborative team and taught Algebra 1. He is now moving on to teach both Algebra 1 and French in South Korea. How cool is that? I'll let him tell you more about it. Logan is a very thoughtful and talented individual, and his reflections about his first year of teaching are encouraging and insightful. Let's jump in. Well, welcome, Logan. Thank you for being on the podcast. It's really great to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and just share the story of how you got to where you are today.
So my name's Logan Johnson. I was born here in Tucson, but I lived throughout the world because my parents were in the military. So I lived in Alaska, Colorado, and Germany, which is my personal favorite. After living there for 5 years in Germany, I came back to Tucson and finished up my school. Actually, in high school, that's where I found my love for teaching and also for math from my AP Calculus teacher, Gretchen Stickney. She was amazing, made math effortless, easy, but also she was super passionate, which just kind of started my interest in pursuing teaching in college. So from there, I did go to NAU and I got my bachelor's in math education, and French, and I'm currently on my way to getting a master's. I did finish my first year of teaching at Mountain View High School, teaching algebra, which was very fun. And recently, I did get a offer that I could not refuse in teaching in South Korea to students of military parents, kind of like how I grew up.
Mhm. I know it's such a bummer you'll be leaving Mountain View, but I mean, like you said, that really is a great offer. Do you know what you're going to be teaching there yet? Or
So I will be teaching Algebra 1 again.
okay,
I have 3 classes of Algebra 1 and 1 class of first year French and 1 class of second year French. So I'm pretty much going from 1 prep to 3 preps, which is going to be fun.
wow, dude, getting to teach Algebra 1 and French. You know, I find that interesting. You said living in Germany was your favorite, but do you speak any German as well? Or
I did, but of course, after moving to America, like I haven't used it in so long that it kind of faded away. I did take 1 class in German in college, but of course that was 4 years ago. So I'm sure it'll come quickly, especially when I visit Germany, probably in the summers with my family who's there. But for now, I pretty much have as much knowledge as uh, like a tourist.
gotcha. Do you have you had a chance to interact with many of the other teachers or where you're going to be, or how does that set up? How does that work?
So the teachers in Korea, I have a sponsor over there, so I did get to meet her. She's going to be like taking care of my stuff outside of school, getting me affiliated with Korea. But she's also the other Algebra 1 teacher, so we're gonna do a lot of planning together, I imagine. And so that's the only teacher I've met so far, and I'm the only French teacher, so it's just me on that end, creating my own materials and pretty much my own curriculum.
Gotcha. Do you know roughly how many students are going to be teaching or?
Um, in according to the schedule, if I remember right, the most I have is 24, which is in my French class, but my algebra classes are like 15 students, which is very tiny.
Yeah, that's awesome. So are all of the classes like on the base? Is that how it works?
They will be on the base, Humphreys High School, which is the biggest base in the Pacific West.
That's so cool, dude. Remind me, have you been to South Korea before?
Nope. Yep, first time in Asia, so that'll be
Gotcha.
fun.
Dude, good for you, man. Just to take off and teach Algebra 1 and French in a new country. I don't know, dude. I just think that's so cool. So thanks for sharing a little bit about your story. Like you said, you just finished your first year at Mountain View where we got to work together teaching Algebra 1. So what would you say, or like what are the three words you would use to just describe your first year teaching?
So the first one's pretty positive. It was rewarding. So I really learned a lot my first year because I was just walking in with like a semester student teaching, which helped. But other than that, with like starting from scratch with my own procedures and everything. And granted, it was very chaotic at the start, but with all the support and everything, I really learned a lot through for you, the PLC and my Mountain View coach with classroom management and other professional developments. So that's word number one.
Mm,
The second one is validating. I did have like some self-esteem issues at the beginning because nothing was really working well, and it's like, where do I go from here? There's like it's kind of digging myself out of a hole. But like just through motivation, it's just it was I was able to believe in myself a little bit more, and also through the impact of my students, like how I had an impact on their student learning. I was able to get some of their input and feedback, and they had nothing but positive things to say, which was very, at the end of the year, I was very happy. But one word that was throughout my whole year was overwhelming.
mm, hmm.
It was a lot going into my first year. Again, setting up a procedure and like for classroom management, and a lot of things didn't work, and some things did work. So I had to find a balance of that, what worked, what doesn't work. And also, I did have to spend some time outside of school, which was a little bit much, getting my materials set and finding cool materials to use. And also, I was in the middle of my master's program, so doing all of that, finding a work-life balance was pretty difficult and overwhelming. But once summer hit, it was kind of a big relief because I can relax and just kind of reward myself for a long and great year.
Yeah, I don't know how you were able to balance, first year teaching with all of those responsibilities, induction program, the program you're doing to the U of A, and then
Mhm.
also your master's program that we're both doing together, by the way, which I thought was so cool that we got to kind of have that connection. Oh, we're teaching algebra one, but then we would have chances to talk about whether abstract algebra or whatever other courses, so that was really fun connection. I couldn't imagine being a first year teacher and having to balance all of that. So no wonder overwhelming was a word you pick.
Yeah,
You've kind of hinted at it before, and I mean that's very natural for first year teachers to kind of feel overwhelmed or to struggle with, self-esteem issues, or feeling like we're setting the right procedures in place, or classroom management. All those kinds of things are very those are very common, for first year teachers. But what would you say some of those biggest challenges you faced were?
definitely classroom management. So there were just a lot of things that didn't work when it came to like phones, when it came to group interactions, how I seated students. There were just some combinations that just didn't work at all. With conversations with my coach, we were able to get a system with the phones. So I was able to get little pouches that students were able to keep their phones in. That really saved me a lot at the end of the year. And let's see. Another challenge with the classroom management was the pretty much there were some students that like to test my limits, so that was a little difficult on my end, especially like with self-esteem issues. It's like I'm the bigger person here, like I'm the adult in the room. Like I shouldn't just have these students, especially freshmen, just bossing me around. And like it is my classroom, but I do want to make it positive for everyone else. So it was rocky at the start, and some students were shuffled around to make it a little bit more even throughout my whole
Mm.
classes, and it got a whole lot better from there. I don't think there was a big challenge with the content. I felt pretty comfortable with that, and I had a a team of, I want to say, 5 other members, you included, and it was very helpful. And I felt very confident when it came to delivering the content.
That's fantastic. It seems like one cliche that I've heard is like the first year you're trying to get your classroom management down, and then the second year you get your content down. But the fact that you're feeling confident with the content already is awesome, and I think it just speaks to you already in your first year teaching. Like, yeah, you experienced some very common challenges, but man, you also did a lot of cool things. As far as some of those challenges went, you kind of mentioned having the coach to help support you and guide you through things. Were there any other supports that you had that helped you overcome any of these challenges?
Definitely admin, the vice principal for behavior and classroom discipline. She was a huge help, being able to kind of at the beginning of the year, like the first 3 weeks, shuffle some students around that might work better in some of my other classes because they had their behavior record from the middle school. So that helped me out so much. And in content, my PLC was amazing, meeting almost every week, getting some cool new ideas. And yeah, I was just very thankful for all that support. And there was also the U of A induction program. So occasionally I had my U of A coach come in. She was amazing, wonderful, and was able to provide me so much feedback. And the program itself, we were able to get more engaging, like cool engaging activities for the students, and to get vertical boards, which helped a lot with the student engagement, and they really liked that.
That's awesome. Now, your coach was Susie, right?
Susie Math, yeah,
Okay.
she's amazing.
I just saw her at the Building Thinking Classrooms conference in Phoenix.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and she had nothing but positive things to say about you too, Logan. So I hope you know that as well. Would you say that there was any other additional support that you would have liked to have seen? Because a big focus in education is how do we keep good, talented teachers happy? Like, how do we keep people in the profession? And that's kind of my goal as I'm finding myself becoming more of a teacher leader. Is like, how can I come alongside and support first year teachers in better ways? So, what would you say, or if there are any like additional things that either I could have done, the school could have done, or just in general that could have made I mean, first year teaching is going to be hard no matter what. But
Yeah.
are there any other additional supports that you would have liked that could have helped?
Honestly, I felt kind of the opposite. Like I felt like I had an overwhelming amount of support, which is a good thing. Like
Mm.
because I wasn't left stranded or anything. And like I've heard from new teachers in other districts from the U of A induction program, just hearing their stories about how like there weren't like they didn't have any support, like made me feel like I kind of hit the jackpot with Mountain View, because I mean it really was. I had so much support from the admin of my team, and also the induction programs, the master program. Like I had a lot going for me that year, so I couldn't have asked for anything more or even better.
That's fantastic. I feel like I had a very similar experience to you as well in my first year teaching, where I had the U of A induction program, and then I also had colleagues at the school who I trusted, and an admin that had my back. And I think that that's something that a lot of teachers don't get. Unfortunately, you read a lot of the discourse online, or you talk about different problems in education. So many teachers feel like they don't have that they don't feel supported by their administration. But I feel very supported at Mountain View, and it's really great to hear that you felt that way too. So now, the first word you used was rewarding. Okay, let's talk about that. Like, what were some of those wins? So, what were some of those things that made you feel like this was a rewarding year?
One of them was the students. I was able to create very good relationships with a lot of my students, and that really helped them like relate to them in terms of what I use in the classroom. Like I had a lot of sports players, so I try to include some sports stuff, even though I know nothing about some of these sports. But I try to include them, and there's like some artists in there, so I try to have more visual activities. So getting to know my students really helped me out a lot in terms of my teaching. And another win was kind of like the building thinking classrooms approach, getting those whiteboards, getting them up and moving around the classroom. when I started using that, I want to say second semester, like a lot more. Students were just very, very engaged and were actually talking about math instead of just me going over like notes on a PowerPoint and then just have them do a few review problems. They were able to go from more easy to progress to more difficult problems, which was pretty cool. And they were able to do that pretty much on their own, just with their group. So for them having using math language and on their own more independently was one of the biggest wins.
That's awesome. That's really encouraging that you have found yourself using some of the building thinking classroom strategies because you know that I'm super into that right now, and so many other teachers are. And that was something that was really encouraging to me when I went to the conference in Phoenix. Was there was about 1,300 other math teachers there, which I've never seen that many math teachers together at a conference in Phoenix in July. Like, what is going on? So this building thinking classroom thing, that's so it's really encouraging to hear you say that was something that had helped, because that's something that I'm trying to grow in, and it's also something that I'm trying to spread to others. What was where did the building thinking classrooms influence, would you say, primarily came from?
Definitely the U of A induction program because they have like all of their objectives and like their goals using that approach for all the activities that they introduce and everything gives us more different ways to see how building thinking classrooms could be used in our own classrooms. And what made me start to use it a lot more was the building thinking classrooms conference in want to say March. It was like during spring break
Oh
in
yeah,
Phoenix.
yeah.
That's when I was able to see it more in action with Peter Liljedahl himself right there was very cool. So that inspired me a lot more with his cool activities. And also seeing him last fall was also pretty inspiring too.
Would you say that if there's anything, like any lessons or activities, ideas or strategies where you're like, you know what, this is something that I have to do next year? Like, what is something that you're looking forward to using in your practice next year?
One activity that stood out to students the most was when we were starting the exponential unit. So I had this one activity I used during student teaching where it involved the spread of disease. And I know during the time of COVID, when I first started developing the activity, it was a very relevant activity, but still pretty cool to use nowadays. So students had these cups. All of them were filled with water except one, which was with another clear liquid. And then students were interacting with each other with their pipettes, exchanging liquids. It's kind of weird to say it in the classroom, especially with a bunch of freshmen, but that's what they were doing. And after they recorded who they interacted with, and they did like 3 or 4 rounds depending on the classroom size, I used my science magic and added another liquid to all the cups, and the liquid would have turned pink if they were infected. And then they filled out a cool spreadsheet, and then they counted how many people were infected after round one, how many were infected after round two. And theoretically, if they did it right, use the spreadsheet right, and follow the directions, it should follow the multiplying pattern. So they were able to see it in action. And then we were able to have a discussion about that and how it related to the disease. But then also added on to how can we create like an equation for, like, let's say we were to involve all of Tucson, like how many people might have been affected after like 20 rounds, let's say, and it's gonna further develop that multiplying pattern and skills. And they really like that for the content. And then I had a bunch of non-curricular tasks that were related to math near the end of the year that I want to use at the start of the year. And I thankfully I got it from the U of A induction program where there was like a bunch of cup stacking, but it was just like team building exercises that they really liked when during my final exam when I asked them like what were some activities that you want would like future students to use, like 90% of them said that the cup stacking one. I did a spaghetti tower activity. They liked it very much, and I think I'll use a lot of those next year. I think those were pretty much the top three activities that they really liked, and I really liked too. That was very rewarding.
What a great way to get students engaged in math class, doing something a little bit different. Like you said, with those cups, getting them to, like you said, share the liquids, but just getting them up and moving, right? Because so much of math class is, all right, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen, I'm going to do examples. So the more that we can get them up and moving and thinking, I think that's such a great idea to do. Would you mind sharing that resource with me? You probably shared it with me before, but for anybody listening, would you mind if I just put it in the show notes or something?
Yeah, of course. That'd be cool.
Awesome. All right, Logan. So it was rewarding. It was overwhelming. But also, if you could say one thing to your, think back to where you were like a year ago. What would you say to yourself at the beginning of your first year?
I would just say to believe in yourself. Just I've had a lot of like self-doubts and a lot of contemplation of like what teaching isn't for me, because nothing was really working out. But it's gonna get better, especially with all the support and my network. It's like I learned to believe in myself and also hearing feedback from students that it's okay to make mistakes and overall like you're going to make an impact on them, so that's just believe in yourself is what I would say.
That is beautifully said. I don't think I could say it any better. I think that's so encouraging for people to hear, especially for new teachers to hear. Because like, yeah, it is hard, but you do still make an impact. And like you said, we're gonna make mistakes, but there will still be students who really resonate with what you did and were affected by you. So I think that was awesome.
Yeah,
All right, Logan. Well, speaking of networks and stuff, we should definitely still continue to keep in touch. I love to hear about what goes on in South Korea.
of course. Yeah, it's gonna be an adventure, and I know we're still in the master's program, but definitely I would like to continue contact after that. And I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of other resources, probably different resources too, that I'd be happy to share.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm just so curious. Maybe in like a year or two, we'll have you back on the podcast and you can tell me all about South Korea because that'll be a whole different experience that I'm sure I would personally find a lot benefit from.
Yeah, I would love to do that. That'd be perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Logan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.